It's a challenging time to be a teacher. We don't get paid a lot, the days can be long and exhausting, demands from students, parents, admins, and districts can be intense. There's always room for improvement and there is always more to do. There are always new procedures to learn, new programs to run, new strategies to master. But it's when our fire burns the lowest that we remember our purpose. We teach because we're resilient. We teach because we're problem solvers. We teach because investing in kids is one of the highest callings we can imagine. We teach because we know that the classroom can be a place of magic and possibility. We teach because we have an unquenchable fire for learning and a passion to share it. We teach because our colleagues are some of the best human beings we will ever meet. We teach because we have an opportunity to influence the global citizens that will make this world a better place. If you're still on fire for learning and growth, join the Teachers on Fire Roundtable for conversations that will warm your heart, spark your thinking, and ignite your practice. You'll hear from real people and real educators with real solutions, not make-believe perfection, but ideas, inspiration, and a path toward change and transformation in K-12 education today. My name is Tim Cavey. I'm an 8th grade teacher, assistant principal, and the host of the Teachers on Fire podcast. I'm inviting you to join us at the Teachers on Fire Roundtable. Because you matter, your voice is important, and we are all better together. Good morning, Teachers on Fire. How are you doing this morning? Welcome back to another conversation that will warm your heart, spark your thinking, and ignite your professional practice. I have in the studio with me this morning a high school physics teacher, author, and wellness coach. Good morning, Grace Martin. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me on, Tim.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I like to open with this question, Grace. It's an appropriate one, I think, for your message, and that is checking in. If 1 is burnout and 5 is on fire, where are you putting yourself this morning?
I am an absolute 5 because I consciously work at my well-being. 5 doesn't just happen on its own, but you can get fueled up, fired up, and I'm really hoping the energy of this conversation starts bringing everyone else up to a 5 too. All ships rise with the tide.
Love it. Okay, well, great way to start. Great tone, great energy. Thank you so much for being here once again. Grace, I'd like to start by asking you to share your personal wellness story, because I saw on Instagram lately, and this gets a lot of teachers' attention, that you went from 90 hours, so we'll have to talk about that, 90 hours a week to 40 hours a week. And I would call that getting your life back. So can you share some of that story with us?
Absolutely. So here's the thing. When I was a new teacher, my husband and I call it the 2 years from hell. It was not a fun time in our household. We were newlyweds and he was doing his equivalent of a master's thesis. He was working about 100 hours a week. I was working 90 hours a week as a new teacher and getting zero help, zero supports from anybody. And that's not to say that there weren't amazing teachers in my circle, but they weren't able to help me with what I needed help with. And I overworked, created everything from scratch and killed myself trying to do my absolute best in an environment that was not overly supportive for what my growth was. However, what I found at the end of those 2 years was a breaking point. I gained so much weight, like I gained over 50 pounds of weight and had multiple digestive tract issues that my body broke down. I got to the point of so much stress and have previously suffered from clinical depression that my mental health and my physical health destroyed me. And I literally went to my mother's house to stay with her for a week at the end of those 2 years and said, "Mommy, take care of me," because I couldn't do it anymore. And that was my point of, we can't do this no more. I know that I'm getting all new courses again next year, but we cannot repeat this 90-hour work week ever again. So with all of my well-being being in a complete shambles, the only thing that was still functioning at that point was my marriage with my husband, because he was also going through burnout. All of our external relationships, our social life, everything were terrible. Now, this was pre-COVID. So when COVID hit, I actually had a 8-month-old baby. And I started to teach from my kitchen table with the baby on my hip, trying to do high-end physics questions with my students, trying to make sure that he wasn't crying. And I somehow was able to keep it together. And I was able to talk about the importance of prioritizing mental health. I was able to look around at the other teachers who were struggling hard and provide them supports.
Wow.
That is the big eureka moment of, oh my gosh, when did it happen that I went from teaching 90 hours a week to now I average between 35 to 40 as a full-time teacher? It happened. I created a system, and I didn't even realize that I'd created this system to bring my life into functioning order and consistently work at my well-being. And it took that realization to take a step back and say, wow, I have been working so hard on myself that it just works, that life just clicked back together. And that was my motivation for reaching out to other teachers to offer help as a wellness coach.
Grace, a lot of that was new to me, and I am blown away. I mean, you've lived it. You've really lived it. You've got the credentials to talk about what burnout really looks like. And that's an extreme case. That's a sad case. It's a hard one to listen to, but I know you're not the only one that's lived it. Now, I want to dig into this further, and I'm going to throw sort of a controversial question your way. And the question is it possible to care too much? And just before you answer, I'm going to tease this a little bit here. I want to show you a little bit of what teachers said on Twitter. And we don't have time to read all the responses, but Christy Van Hoven says, yes, that's why boundaries are important. What other job do you go to sleep thinking about, dream about, wake up thinking about? Although some of my best lessons come from the middle of the night. On and on it goes. Great answers here, great ideas. Where do you fall on this question? Is it possible to care too much? What do you think?
Yes, it's possible to care too much within the wrong spheres of priorities. So, as the saying goes of us going to sleep thinking about work, if you are dreaming that you teach in your sleep, you are definitely overworking and overthinking your work. When your best ideas come to you in your sleep, that's because you're in a state of lower resistance and you're allowing the creativity to flow. Your best ideas are coming to you in your sleep because you're not taking good enough care of yourself during the day to allow that creative flow during the day. So, with that side note, it is possible to care too much when you are assigning value to the wrong spheres. That means that you are caring so much about the formatting of your lesson. You are caring so much about getting all of your I's dotted, all of your T's crossed. You are caring so much about going onto Pinterest and finding the best activity. And, oh, that's an okay activity. I did it last year, but I need to go get a better one. I do need to reinvent the wheel because engagement is lower this year. I have more behavior issues. I've got to get an even better activity. I've got to do. That's caring too much in the wrong sphere of influence for your energy. What is so powerful is you care more by doing less. It is possible to care too much about external factors that don't actually move the needle forward in your classroom. And here is the very hard truth, but extremely powerful truth for teachers. When you do less, you show up with a better energy within your classroom space, and you give a better lesson and opportunity for engagement with your students because you've authentically taken care of yourself. That's what the message about the buzzword of self-care, where we have heard all year, oh, take care of yourself, oh, take care of yourself. That's the core message of the intention of what we're saying. What's unfortunate is it's been skewed and gaslit, and teachers are being told, oh, just do self-care. And then their plate is being piled higher and higher without that real tangible support of, no. We need to actually look at your schedule, what you're doing, where you are wasting time and where you're getting caught in energy traps. That's caring too much at the wrong priority. Does that make sense, Tim?
Oh, what an amazing answer, and so many good insights that I could take off on here. But I love the illustration of making the lesson that much better. because we work in this profession where it really can always get better. We can always do more. I remember as a rookie or a second year teacher spending hours, I'm embarrassed to say hours, just formatting documents or handouts or worksheets, just playing with fonts and stuff that is just painful to think about. Because, like you said, I wanted to do everything perfectly for my students, and that's not putting the focus in the right place. So let's dig into a little deeper now into this idea of, as you said, putting our energy in the right spheres. So what does that look like? Specifically, how can we create the boundaries we need to protect our wellness? Can you share a personal example here, or a practical example?
Yeah, personal and practical. The simplest method is time management. And before everyone glazes over, I'm like, okay, are you kidding me? You're now going to tell me time management? Time-based boundaries are tangible. I can't just tell you, oh, like, don't take your kids home with you in your heart, like, care less about the fact that you can't help them in every aspect of their lives. You're going to care. You're going to take your kids home with you in your heart. That's a very intangible piece of advice. A tangible piece of advice is around your time, of having a super clear schedule of this is when I do what task, and your entire life will change because of that time-based tangible boundary. It's your energy, your relationships, your sleep, your entire sense of calm is all going to improve when you establish that clear, maintainable schedule. And by that, I don't mean that you go home and you say, I'm done work for the day. I'm done my contract hours. I'm not doing any work, because what if you do have work to do? What if you do have extra marking to do and it has to get done for the next day? That's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to a system that works specifically for you. So if that means that you are a Saturday worker, then you can work on Saturday, but you have to take one day a week off where you're not doing work, you're not thinking about work. And that means that the days that you are on, when you are working, you are present and focused on your work in a structured way, so that you don't constantly have the, oh, I forgot. Oh, I just, oh, right, I need. We do that all the time. You're marking and you're like, I forgot attendance. And then you're planning and you're like, I forgot to do that form. And then you're typing up something and I have to send that email to a parent. That is the scattered brain. That is an absolute energy trap that will be completely transformed with a proper time management system specifically for teachers. So when you're writing an email, you're going to write it at whatever time is convenient for you. And sometimes for me, that might be 8:30 at night. The difference on this time boundary is I don't send it at 8:30 at night. When you're writing that email, you hit schedule send for the next school day at 8 a.m. to put up the boundary that you are not available outside of this time for communication. And you will train your colleagues, the parents and guardians of your students if you're in high school and they're the ones that are emailing you, that you're not available. And if they're asking you a question at 9 o'clock at night, not to expect a response, because that's your time. And yeah, you can work whenever you want to work, but you schedule send it for the next morning. Does that also make sense?
Oh, I love that so much. And that's actually something that's been pretty new for me, but I really like that idea of scheduling it. There's a couple of things there. One, as you said, it's the modeling, right? We're signaling these are my personal hours. I'm not going to reply to you at that time. And then the other thing is, we can all say from experience, when you reply to that parent at 8:30 at night, you will get a reply within 30 minutes. And then you're playing email tag at night. And that's just a big problem as well. All right, I feel like, Grace, you are a time blocker. Are you one of these people that is able to block every hour of your calendar day?
No. So
Okay.
what I do is I block sections of, if I'm teaching, I'm teaching, right?
Yeah.
Or if I have a prep that I know is actually going to be my prep and I don't have to give it up, for example, because you have to sub and cover for another teacher who's out. If you know that that prep is actually yours, I have to do task A and task B during that prep time. And then right after school, I need to do task C, D, E, right? So I am very fluid with how I think that this task should only take 10 minutes,
Mhm.
but then it ends up taking 20. I have to be really flexible with myself, but the point of that time block is I have this much time to prioritize. These things have to get done, and then I can go home and completely relax, completely turn off. So, yes, I do time block, but it's not a firm schedule. You can
Okay.
be flexible even within those time boundaries that you've set for yourself.
It's a delicate balancing act, I find. And, I try to, or I have tried, I'm sure every teacher, everywhere has tried at some time or another to say at X time, I'm going to just shut it down. But we have to be a little bit flexible, I find, based on what you said. I mean, sometimes there are certain demands going on. So, it is intention, but it doesn't always have to be super rigid, I don't think. Grace, let's talk about what it looks like to build a self-care system. How can we, and thinking of the context of COVID and the last 2 years especially, how can we build in a system, I love this word, that continually recharges us and maintains our energy? What does that look like?
So the first step is mindset because we have been gaslit this year with take care of yourself, go do some yoga, have a bubble bath. And then, like I said, our plates are being just filled higher and higher and higher. So it has to start with mindset that self care is not a buzzword. It's not something that you quote unquote do. It's not take 10 minutes every day to take care of yourself and there you're going to be all fired up. It's an absolute mindset shift to say that type of self care is emergency self care. So, where I equate that is when I went through my 2 years from absolute hell, if I had even just emergency self care, it gave me just the tiniest little boost for the next step. So, your emergency self care is you're going to eat the bag of Cheetos and you're going to be totally guilt free about it. You're going to binge watch the Netflix show. You're going to be guilt free about it. It has a place, but that's not a sustainable system. It's like having a treat, but that's not going to get you to your fitness goals. That's not actually wellness and that's not true self-care. So all emergency self-care does is give you just enough energy and motivation that you can say, okay, I'm going to crack open my schedule. I'm going to look at my priorities. What do I prioritize? Because right now it's looking like I'm prioritizing proper formatting on my lesson.
Yeah.
Let's be conscious about that and say, Kate, I need to stop doing that. And instead, here's the important thing, and instead replace it with. Because whenever we say, oh, I'm just going to not do that, it's like, I'm going to quit this thing cold turkey. Well, sorry, teacher, you're probably a workaholic and you're addicted to doing something. So instead of trying to say, I'm just not going to do it anymore, please replace it with something that is tangible that you can do that moves the needle forward directly for your students and improves their student learning without causing you burnout. If it is your giving to your detriment, it is not worth it. It's way too expensive.
That's
Did you want
another.
to comment on that before I keep going? Because I've got a little more
Oh,
here.
yeah, dude. I was just going to say that's another mic drop moment right there. Yeah, keep going.
Okay, so then we've done our emergency self care. We've got some priorities and scheduling. What do I mean by system? This system that I have for self care is then looking at various aspects of your life. And the next step would be your workplace boundaries and your relationships at work. By and large, our relationships with students are mint. We are good to go. We've got really good boundaries with our students for the most part. The only caveat is for the teacher who's available 24/7 by email for additional help, like you've got the Remind app, you're constantly turned on, you're going to have a time boundary to establish there. But the relationship with your students itself, I know is great. You wouldn't be a teacher if your student relationships weren't great. Where we need a little bit of work and help is with the adults. We need some better boundaries on how we interact with parents and guardians. And that can include communicating less, like remembering that your parents and guardians are also tired and burnt out and overwhelmed, and they don't know what to do anymore. And they have been so inundated with, hey, can you do this? Hey, can you do this? Establishing really concise communication where you ask them to do a lot less and maybe do more of an FYI. Hey, this is what we're doing this week. So if they want to reach out for further support, they can. That workplace boundary is so important. The boundary that we set up with our coworkers, both the coworkers we really like and the coworkers that we don't like. By coworkers that we like, that means not venting 24/7 and making sure that when you have socialization time with them, that it's not eating into your work time, right? We need to have healthy balance with how you communicate with your administration, which I know is a really sore point for a lot of teachers this year who feel that they're unsupported by their admin, and really acknowledging that they're people too. That they're also doing the best that they can, and that we can give a lot of grace for someone not being the person who we want them to be in this moment. So, those workplace boundaries naturally translate into your personal life. You might not think that your personal relationships affect your teaching, but I'm here to be super honest with you and say, yeah, they do. Because how you emotionally handle yourself at home translates to the energy that you bring into the school. And we all know that as soon as that bell rings or as soon as students are in the door, it's like the curtains have come up and we are the actors on stage.
Right.
We are putting on a show. We are good to go. Students are still children who are extremely intuitive. And even if they don't consciously know that there's something up with you, they feel that energy and it will affect your teaching. So after you've got your relationship boundaries, that's when you start looking at how is your relationship with yourself looking? Because ultimately, how you interact with you translates to the rest of your life, because it is the lens through which you see your self-worth. And if you do not think you are worthy, you are going to work too hard to prove that you are worthy. And I'm here to say, oh, honey, nobody is going to validate you. Nobody is going to show you how amazing you actually are, but yourself. You are so important and so worthy, but me telling you that is not as powerful as you going within and acknowledging that you are doing an amazing job no matter what, and that your good is always more than good enough. And then finally, that personal relationship becomes your self-awareness. It becomes your path to emotional resilience. It becomes the point where you look at your stress cycle and say, I need to end this cycle permanently and move into a wellness potential cycle where you unlock the full potential of your wellness and every moment of every day by saying, there's always going to be crud. There's always going to be chaos. We are going to have to pivot again, and we're going to have to deal with the trauma of pivoting again. There's always going to be something else that is a stressful obstacle, and you can meet that with calm amid any chaos.
Wow. So many valuable takeaways there. I want to go to the audience here. There have been a few great comments from our viewers. Welcome to Shannon Schinkel coming in from Prince George. She says, I forgot to email a parent about their child's homework. So connected this morning. I felt it was my error, so I was happy to use my AM to do so. Love the idea of scheduling emails. Going to look into that. I know that is definitely a Gmail feature. I'm assuming Outlook can do the same, and other platforms as well. And Nora Wall said on LinkedIn, welcome to you, Nora. She says, I teach remotely, and I found that students and admin will email quick questions while I'm teaching. I'm working on ignoring those until my scheduled break time because it's very draining. Time management saves my sanity. We've got an unknown user saying balance, boundaries, and breaks. Yes. And we've also got Margaret Murray on LinkedIn. She says, maximize your prep time is crucial, especially at the high school level. Carve out your priorities. It's good to have a few minutes to listen to a podcast. And finally, life is short, so I ensure I am taking care of myself both mentally and physically, walking outdoors and exercising at the gym. Thank you so much to all of our viewers. Really appreciate you being here. Well, Grace, let's talk about your book, My Physics Teacher Said. That's a really fun title. You share 10 ways that we can think smarter and live better. I know we don't have time to hear all of the 10 this morning, but have you got one that you can share with us?
Yes, I can give you the number one, the very first step. It's always about start at the beginning, right? So the first way that you can transform your thinking to live better is by eliminating limiting beliefs. So when we as teachers look at what we believe about teaching, it can be very transformative to say, well, I'm always going to have to do so much work. I'm always going to have to work a 50-hour work week. I'm always going to have to do work after school. You can get out of your own way very quickly by just shifting your mindset and say, I'm going to intentionally build new habits and ways of looking at things that are going to serve me and serve my students instead of working against us. Now, here's a fun example is if all scientists believed that what goes up must come down, we never would have had the solution-based mentality of let's put a rocket into outer space or let's put a satellite into orbit. Whatever the underlying belief system is that we have can affect how we look at building solutions. So Einstein said, you can't solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that created it. You have to be willing to change how you're looking at your situation in order for it to get so much better. So as you were saying these extra comments from the audience, I was thinking the quick questions that always come from admin or from other students while you're teaching. If you have your email on your phone and as you're teaching, you pop up and you click on it and you read it, just mark unread. Mark unread so that then it gets pushed back to the time block that you have set aside for emails. But I know a lot of us will think, oh, well, I need to respond it right now so I don't forget. If you shift your mentality to saying, I always do have time. I am not going to forget. I have time set aside for this. Guess what? You're not going to forget it. It's as simple as shifting that belief. The next really big one that we have as teachers is I have no time. Or this one is really, really subtle. I must be doing a really good job because I'm completely exhausted. I am such a good teacher because I give. And I know I must be doing a good job because I literally have nothing left to give. That's what I call wearing your burnout as a badge of honor. It does not serve you. That comes from your ego of pride and fears. Pride that, oh, look at me, and fear that you are actually not worthy as a teacher. And I'm so here to be real with you and say, you are worthy. Stop wearing your burnout as a badge of honor. You do have time. You can get it all done, but you can get it all done if it's important. You can do anything, not everything. You cannot do everything that is unimportant and get everything important done.
Ooh, so good. I think about the tyranny of the urgent and just the email trap. You sort of alluded to it with the unread emails and sort of putting it aside. Actually, my solution, Grace, with the phone is I just keep my phone on Do Not Disturb 24/7, and that horrifies some people, but I just don't see those email pop-ups. So I do see the red badge number on my emails start to stack up sometimes, but at least it's not interrupting my flow, you know what I mean? And I'm sort of controlling when that comes into my focus. Well, we are starting to wind down, but let me hit you with a few sort of rapid fire kinds of questions. They don't have to be rapid fire, but shorter questions. And I'm interested, frankly, in all my guests and how they answer these ones. So first of all, what is one, let me get this right. What is one app, routine, or daily practice that gives you clarity and recharges your fire?
Great big, there's not one thing. Taking my own advice is being present in anything that I do. There is never just one thing or one app or routine that you can do for your whole well-being as a multi-passionate individual, but you can be present in anything that you do. So if you are going to calm right down and say, this is the task that I'm doing, it could be you're chopping vegetables to make dinner. Chop vegetables to make dinner. Notice where the knife is slicing through the vegetable. Be entirely grounded in the here and now and present in whatever you are doing. That will transform your entire well-being for your life.
Whose voices are inspiring you right now, Grace? Which authors, speakers, or creators are lighting your fire for learning?
Honestly, as I'm talking about the mindfulness and be present, Eckhart Tolle has an entire book called The Power of Now that can be summarized into just be present. It's an entire book of be here the now. And sometimes we need to read an entire book for that message to click with us. But I'm absolutely listening to Eckhart Tolle. I'm a huge personal development buff. So anything personal development sphere is my jam. And that's who I'm focusing on right now.
I saw you drop that title in my Facebook group. Thank you so much for doing that. I'm going to have to add that to my Goodreads want to read list. Well, tell us, Grace, about a current or maybe an upcoming project or activity that you're focused on that is firing you up. Have you got something new coming up in the works?
Well, actually, it's not new so much as just changing. My
Sure.
half-hour emotional wellness coaching calls have been so booked that I can't do them for free anymore after this month. So starting next month, it'll be $30 for 30 minutes because the emotional transformation that I have seen has been so life-changing, and it's firing me up because I really want to work with people who are committed to saying, I need more than just a quick like half hour where I'm going to vent at you for 25 minutes and then going to get like a
Yeah.
5 minute strategy. But what's been great about that is even with like that 5 minute strategy, seeing a teacher who is at like an anxiety level 9 or 10, right down to a 2 within a matter of a few minutes. Someone getting complete perspective of, oh, I hadn't thought about my time management that way. You know what? Yeah, I will take your $7 time management course because that sounds so good. And seeing that transformation that can happen in such a short period of time is firing me up right now. It's really exciting me because that's also where we find out if you would like to do one-on-one coaching. And the relationships that I have formed with my clients who are doing one-on-one coaching is amazing. The in-depth feels are just
Yeah.
indescribable.
That sounds like a pretty good deal. And just to follow that up a little bit, I mean, I'm thinking about $30 per session. That sounds like an amazing deal. I was just watching Twitter last night and people were talking about why isn't, counseling covered? And often we think about spending over $200 per session on counseling. So is that, when you're going back to the service that you're offering, is that a weekly installment or can that be adjusted? What
Okay,
does that
so
look like? Yeah.
it used to be that the first half hour was free, and now what I'm doing is the first half hour is 30 minutes. When you look at how expensive counseling is or wellness coaching, yes, my price range is right up there too. However, I like to look at it as if you have to be my client for more than X amount of sessions, I'm not actually doing my job. I only take on clients with the understanding that we are going to hope that you don't need me anymore after a few months. Because if you still need me after a few months, even after a year, then I don't think I've done my job as to going in depth right to the source and the root of the problem instead of doing talk therapy. And the way that I describe talk therapy with my clients is it's like if you cut yourself and you're bleeding, you need to clean the wound, right? But then you leave it alone. So talk therapy is so important. It's like cleaning the wound, but don't go back and keep picking at the wound and picking at the scab and picking. Don't get caught in the never ending vent. If it's something that you could just do talking to your friends, then maybe it's not the right move the needle forward that you need in counseling. Please ensure that when you are accessing your mental wellness supports, that it is making you feel better, not always worse.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like an obvious point, but I think that's worth saying. And I'm such a fan of coaching. I mean, if anyone's wondering out there, this is not a paid
Oh, yeah.
conversation by any means. This is not endorsed, but I think opportunities like this are actually pretty rare. And if you are a teacher or know a teacher who is struggling, I think this is an option worth considering. This could be potentially life-changing, and a lot of teachers feel like they don't have that person. They can't put the weekly calls on a colleague or an administrator, but Grace is offering her services. Consider that move. Grace, last question. How and where can we join your learning journey? You are doing so much to help teachers. And like you said, even with starting with the baby on your lap. So tell us how we can reach out and get connected with your work.
The easiest way is just through Instagram. I'm at Mrs. A. Grace Martin, or you can log on to my website. It's wellnesspotentialteacher.com. And if you just go /teacher time, that is the amazing time management system that took me from teaching 90 hours a week down to 40. Please go check that out and access that. Only $7 is going to just give you the best transformation. That's my best gift that I can give to you, is like thousands of dollars of value and getting your life back for $7. That's what I can give to you guys.
Grace, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing your insights. You are so well spoken and just bring such a tremendous positive energy. I can feel that from you. So thank you so much for all that you're doing for educators, and keep up the great work.
You too, Tim. I really appreciate Teachers on Fire. It has been lit.
Thanks.
So